Tom Vecchio next.
Welcome into the Pro Football Today post-game show, as Kevin mentioned, with Kasey Hudson and Tom Vecchio. And Tom, I feel like we got a number of things to get into. 34-10 is the final. Texans take this one as expected, but we got to unpack the fact that we discussed the spread, we discussed the total, we discussed what players were going to be more impactful. You called a Joe Mixon game. It was very much a Joe Mixon game. So final thoughts, or overall thoughts, I should say, of this matchup.
I want to say that we got, collectively, we got a lot of things right on the pregame show. Personally, I wasn't super high on, John Mechie. I just didn't expect him to be involved. He was involved. Credit to you for that one. I expected Nico Collins to be a little bit more involved, and he was like a good amount. He had that pass that they challenged. It could have been another 20 or 22 yards. He had the first play of the game, which could have been 70 yards and a touchdown, which would have been awesome for all the props. That wasn't the case, but, a lot of the things we said in the pregame show, kind of came through that, we saw C.J. Stroud hit the under on his TD passing attempts. We saw Joe Mixon have a big game, and I said on the pregame show that Joe Mixon was going to go for 20-plus carries and hit the century mark, which is exactly the thing that he did, 20 carries and 109 yards on the ground. I also said, if the Texans cover this game, it is not going to be close. I said it wouldn't be right at that 7 or 8 number. I said they would win by 14 plus, and that's exactly what they did. So a lot of things went well for the Texans. There are some clear issues that they have. I think they still need to continue to protect C.J. Stroud. He needs to continue to look downfield. And a lot of their offense still needs to be worked out, because 3rd and inches, and you are not running the ball with Joe Mixon, and then what are we doing there? Run the ball with Joe Mixon on 3rd and inches. That's one thing. They just need to get some things figured out. It is a positive step for the Texans. It is not perfect. And again, as I mentioned on the pregame show, over the next few weeks, they play the Titans and the Jags. This is where they start to build the offense and solidify their spot for the playoffs.
Yeah, you definitely called that one in terms of saying if the Texans get out ahead, it's not going to be a close call here. And they were able to pull that off. Now, there was a number of question marks there for a minute, still a number of miscues. I mean, for a second, everybody was so hyper-focused on the miscues for the Cowboys, but still a bit sloppy for the Texans. Definitely better for them to keep their lead and go away with it. But after what we saw last week, you just thought they were going to build a little bit more cleanliness to their game. Now, putting some of the context clues in there when it comes to the numbers for the Texans offense, C.J. Stroud sitting at 257 passing yards, 23 for 34, so good to see him get back in that category. 0 passing touchdowns. I saw a lot of upset fans when it comes to go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, no, I will say, besides the passing touchdowns, I'm pretty sure he went over all of his props. He hit the overs on all of his props except for the touchdowns.
Yeah, I had his pass attempts at 31.5. That went over, seeing as how he hit 34. His numbers went from 238.5 down to 229.5. So depending on when you jumped on it, a clear over with the 257, just no passing touchdowns.
Right. So it was like, from a betting perspective, and same thing with Cooper Rush. 55 attempts for Cooper Rush and 354 yards is absolutely massive compared to the 45 yards he put up last week. So, if you are putting these players in, same game parlays or whatever it was that you had tonight, outside of the passing touchdowns, I mean, Cooper Rush should have the one, but outside of the Stroud passing touchdown, these players flew over their props.
Yeah, and it's funny because as In-Game Live wrapped up, Kevin said whoever had Cooper Rush for this made some freaking money tonight. I mean, there was a number of things that were not on the bingo card tonight. Cooper Rush by any means gracing 300, gracing 200, maybe even 220 if we went wild, was nowhere near it. Stroud kind of getting back in his lane when it comes to the 250 plus. We talked about that on the pregame show. That's kind of his rhythm when things are going better. I'm not going to say well because it really wasn't the sexiest performance for the Texans. Mixon, as you mentioned, on the ground, 109. But then Stroud behind him with 26. A nice run for him. Nico Collins does top the wide receiving room with 54 receiving yards through 4 receptions, and then tied up with Tank Dell, 54. So you were on top of Tank Dell in terms of if it wasn't Nico Collins, it was going to be Tank Dell. And then thank you for the credit for Michi getting more involved. 3 receptions for 33 yards. Dalton Schultz right there in the mix as well. So how do we gauge this Texans team moving forward? Because we've both said this, not the cleanest, but still a win that they needed to get here.
Yeah, I think this is what we should expect from them for the most part. Like, it's a Joe Mixon-led offense. We're going to see Nico Collins be more involved. We'll see some of these games, maybe probably against the Jags, where he breaks off for over 100 yards. And then Tank Dell, Dalton Schultz kind of playing those secondary roles. And then sometimes it's going to be Robert Woods or Mechie or even Hutchinson getting involved and playing some of those secondary roles after that.
Absolutely. Well, this and so much more to get back to here on Pro Football Today, the post-game show with Tom Vecchio and myself. Stick with us after this quick break.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circus Sports Million, Circus Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With 2 former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
We live in a society right now where everybody's a snowflake, everybody's a cupcake, and everybody thinks that nothing is fair. Everything is like, it's not fair. We should have a better chance. We need more. You know what? I'm old enough to remember when you needed to have a perfect goddamn record to win a college football championship. That's the way it was. 11-1, too bad.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
Grandma Bear, who owns the football team, probably comes in, gives a little, oh, man, you're such a good little boy out there. Congratulations, the way you coach this football team. I'm never going to fire you.
Totally, I missed you pinching your own cheek. Because I was looking down and did not know we were getting.
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there with that guy named Ben. Like, that's what your grandma would do to you when you go see her on Thanksgiving or Christmas,
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Tony Bennett stepping down and resigning from Virginia right before the season started versus the Villanova team that, folks, I got to take my glasses off. I can't figure this team out. I can't figure this team out for 2 damn years. And the problem that keeps coming up is the coaching of Kyle Neptune.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back into Pro Football Today, the post-game show with Kasey Hudson and Tom Vecchio here on SportsGrid TV, running through the Texans' victory, 34-10 being the final in the books on this Monday night. Now, we talked about the Texans, we talked about their offense, we talked about the fact that what we saw tonight is probably what we'll continue to see, Joe Mixon leading the Texans' offense. But let's kind of jump over to the Cowboys for a minute before we move to some previews looking ahead. More importantly, this is their offense. Cooper Rush is going to be leading this team because Dak Prescott had season-ending surgery with the hamstring, but 354 passing yards, the lone passing touchdown between the two QBs. I don't know who had that on the bingo card. Dowdle, 28 on the ground, which was kind of expected. CeeDee Lamb came to life with 93 receiving yards through 8 receptions. And it did end up going up to 10 targets. But how do we even put a pulse on this? Or is this just one of those things where, unfortunately, the fans signed in the crowd that said, next year for sure is our year. I'm banking on that. Do we just start looking ahead when it comes to this Cowboys team and call it?
When it comes to the Cowboys, like, their running game has been terrible all year. And even when they were fully healthy from week 1 and Dak Prescott was there, it's just been a bad running game all season long. So, At some point, I do think we will see Trey Lance getting starts, but until then, listen, they're running a lot of plays, right? And because their running game is so bad, and we're going to see like Cooper Rush throw the ball, when you pass the ball more, there's a chance that the clock stops more of incompletion, so they just have a chance to run more plays. So passing attempts for Cooper Rush, however ugly they may be the answer. And it's good to see that he at least targets CeeDee Lamb as the primary option, and Schoonmaker could be that secondary option if we do see Jake Ferguson. Now, I mean, 10 targets for Luke Schoonmaker is pretty encouraging. So it may not be pretty, but pass attempts for Cooper Rush, CeeDee Lamb is the consistent, then Schoonmaker, and no part of their running game.
Yeah, that is a good point. Any other final thoughts for this Monday night matchup before we start looking ahead to Thursday and Sunday?
I mean, I was super high on Nico Collins this week, and I assume he'll score next week, as is the trend. I was super high on Puka Nacua last week, and he scored yesterday, so I'm just going to be on Nico Collins for a touchdown in their next game.
All right. Once again, hearing it here first, unless you said it earlier today. So let's start to look ahead. I mentioned Thursday, and for this Thursday night showdown, we got the Steelers taking on the Browns. We've got Dave Cherepin feeling really good about his Pittsburgh Steelers. 4.5 on the spread, 35.5 on the total, which I'm not going to lie, I found the total to be so gross for this one. Tom, how do we start gauging this matchup?
It is a cold weather AFC North matchup with a low total on a short week. I can already see it on the pregame show on Thursday. Dave's going to start off that first segment and say, it's night in Pittsburgh behind me, but the game's in Cleveland, and it's all about the Steelers. That's what Dave's going to say, or something to that effect. This game is going to be all about the Steelers, and I'm saying it right now. This game is going to be all about Najee Harris. That is a spoiler for anyone watching on the pregame show on Thursday night. You'll hear me talking about Najee Harris. We just saw Taysom Hill and Alvin Kamara run all over this Browns defense. And while we did see some actual good things from Jameis Winston yesterday, we didn't get to do a whole lot of recaps yesterday, but the defense is why the Browns lost. Like, Jameis Winston was good. He didn't throw any interceptions. He threw touchdowns. He was moving the ball. I think there's a chance that Jameis has a decent game, and it's maybe because the Browns defense is so bad that he has to pass the ball because they're playing from behind. So I think it's a Najee Harris and potentially Jameis Winston game not next week, this Thursday.
Yeah, and that was surprising to see Jameis Winston have more of an efficient performance. But again, there's always that revenge factor going against one of the former teams. And ever since he stepped in, I mean, he's always got a point to prove in terms of not being, QB3 on a roster. So it's definitely going to be an interesting game. But I think you nailed it, Tom. We're going to hear Pittsburgh behind us. We're going to have the decked out outfit. I feel like it's going to go to a whole nother level in terms of what he can rock and honoring his Steelers going against this Browns team. But it should be a Steelers win. I'm excited to see what we can stack up against for the pregame show and or party. We got another in-division showdown going down. Vikings, Bears. We have a lot of frustrated Bears fans. I mean, the things that I've seen all over Twitter in the past 2 weeks. I'm so sorry, Bears fans. 3.5 on the spread, 39.5 on the total. What do we make of this one besides, unexpected punishing?
It's getting tough for Bears fans, not just the way that things have gone, but also the way things have ended, where the field goals seemingly being a kryptonite for them, not just this year, but obviously extending over many, many years with a double doink going back that far. When it comes to the Vikings, Aaron Jones didn't look too good this past week. I don't know if he's still a little bit banged up dealing with, various injuries as he has had, but it should be a ground game for the Vikings, and their defense, led by Brian Flores, their DC is awesome. Like, it has been downright awesome this year, and they are, even in the postgame, Brock Purdy with a great offense in San Francisco at the time, early in the year, when they were fully healthy, when Brandon Ayuk was there. Brock Purdy said, he was confused as what Brian Flores was doing with the different looks. If that is the case, it's going to be a tough week for Caleb Williams, and the Bears offense is not going to be moving the ball. So I think a Bears team total under is probably the best spot to go. I do think the Vikings end up covering.
Yeah, there's no way that this defense doesn't continue to just show how like how great they are at leveling up and shifting things around, and to see how the Bears keep up with that one would be fascinating. Tell me something good, Tom. Bucks versus Giants, 5.5 on the spread, 41.5 on the total. Bucks bring back Mike Edwards to go into that secondary to help them with some of their coverage. We've seen him be a bit of a ball hawk before. Of course, that's me being extra biased with previous coverage, but what can we make of this one? You get Daniel Jones to officially be benched. It's time for another quarterback to shine when it comes to the New York Giants. So how do we start with this?
I think the easiest way to say is the Bucks need to win this game just based on where they're in the standings, the wild card, et cetera, et cetera. Do they cover? Maybe the Giants have like a little bit of juice because of the quarterback change. We have seen DeVito, last year he's got something a little bit different compared to Daniel Jones. So the Bucks win. I'm not sure if they cover, but the Bucks are coming off the bye, right? Like they gotta be ready for this game, a little bit healthier, a little bit rested. I think that's how I would look to play it, where the total is super close. If it goes over because we see some late scoring, or maybe the Giants actually have a little bit extra life on offense because Tommy Vito brings something different, I wouldn't be surprised if it hits the over. 41.5 isn't super, super high. So Bucks win, they don't cover.
Yeah, I could definitely see this going over the total, and a couple little birdies are circulating saying that this can be potentially the week that Mike Evans makes his comeback. So that could be a game changer, something that Tom and I will definitely get into in the post-game show on Thursday for Pro Football Today. A little under a minute, but we'll continue to unpack it on the other side here. Let's talk some lines. Colts, 7.5 on the spread, 50.5 on the total.
I mean, that's certainly a high total considering what the Lions can do by themselves. They can put up 50 points and before you know it, this is a game that the Lions should win. The Colts, they looked good last week. It was against the Jets. Again, maybe they're going back to Anthony Richardson. They just have some team momentum. They're in the wild card race, et cetera, et cetera. So do I want to lay 7.5 with the Lions? No. So I want to wait and see with the Lions, right? If it drops to 7 or 6.5, I will have a ton of interest in the Lions. But going over 7.5, especially on the road after this huge win, probably not my favorite spot, but if push comes to shove and it stays at 7.5, I would pick the Lions at 7. I want it to drop down to 7 or 6.5, then I will absolutely jump on board.
All right. Then we'll get into more interesting territory as we start to unpack this one. Niners taking on the Green Bay Packers, 1.5 on the spread, 47.5 on the total. And whoa, I might actually think this is anybody's game, honestly.
Yeah, I think so too. The 49ers obviously did not look good in this past week. Green Bay coming off a huge win, literal last-second win with the blocked field goal. We're coming up against a break right now. We can get to this game on the other side. I think we're in for an awesome game, and it really should be a playoff-type atmosphere, which I think leans toward under, but we'll get back to it.
Yeah, I'm excited to get into this one and see what angles we can unpack. As Tom mentioned, coming up against a break here, but as you love to remind you all the time, make sure you're following SportsGrid over at SportsGrid and stick with us as we get ready to go to a quick break and wrap up Pro Football Today, the post-game show.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circus Sports Million, Circus Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With two former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
We live in a society right now where everybody's a snowflake, everybody's a cupcake, and everybody thinks that nothing is fair. Everything is like, it's not fair. We should have a better chance. We need more. You know what? I'm old enough to remember when you needed to have a perfect goddamn record to win a college football championship. That's the way it was. 11-1, too bad.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
Grandma Bear, who owns the football team probably comes in, gives a little, hey, you're such a good little boy out there. Congratulations, the way you coach this football team. I'm never going to fire you.
Totally, I missed you pinching your own cheek as I was looking down and did not know we were getting.
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there with that guy named Ben. Like, that's what your grandma would do when you go see her on Thanksgiving or Christmas,
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Tony Bennett stepping down and resigning from Virginia right before the season started versus the Villanova team that, folks, I gotta take my glasses off. I can't figure this team out. I can't figure this team out for 2 damn years. And the problem that keeps coming up is the coaching of Kyle Neptune.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Back at it with Pro Football today, the post-game show with Kasey Hudson and Tom Vecchio here on SportsGrid TV. Starting to look ahead at some of the Sunday slate games, and we were starting to discuss the Niners taking on the Packers. I mentioned the fact that it could be anybody's game. 1.5 on the spread, 47.5 when it comes to the total. Now, you got a Niners team that has just kind of been on a bit of a roller coaster throughout this season. We know that initially the impact were the numerous injuries that they had on their roster, but then you see them go into this previous matchup on Sunday. Seahawks end up rallying at the end there, taking over this game, 20-17 being the victory. Brock Purdy, 159 passing yards, equal ratio of touchdowns to interceptions, one apiece. Christian McCaffrey, of course, on the ground, 79, and then Jennings through the air leading the group, 91. I don't know what to make of this Niners team anymore, Tom. That's just where I'm at with them. And I don't know what to make of them going against a Green Bay Packers team that can keep their game simple and efficient and even cleaner than the Seahawks and potentially walk away with a win.
Right. 49ers collapse of a game last week going up against the Seahawks. I would say, big news for this is obviously going to be will George Kittle play because he didn't play in the recent game. Again, what we saw from the 49ers was absolutely terrible. That's just, it is what it is. And obviously the Packers kind of had their faults as well to let the Bears back in the game. And Bears legitimately had a shot to win. So both teams are fighting for playoff position. We got to remember that despite the Packers, what are they? 7-3. They're third in their division, right? They're third in their division. They're fighting for a wild card spot because the NFC North is so good. So under 47.5, I think, has to be the play. The 49ers don't want to turn this into a shootout because I just don't think that's what they want to do. They're missing some pieces on offense, and the Packers are healthier overall. So this game has to be slowed down. This has to be a Jacobs CMC game, respectively, for these two teams.
Oh, I love that angle, and I would definitely kind of probably favorably see what the numbers and stuff will look like for Jacobs. I mean, even Mason, we know him to be a workhorse to kind of alleviate or have his big moments as well, and he was just so short-stacked when it came to the statistics for the matchup versus the Seahawks. So another good game coming up. We've got the Tom Vecchio Cardinals versus the Seattle Seahawks. 1.5 on the spread, 47.5 on the total. Tom, show your love. What do we see in this one?
This is a massive game in the standings for the NFC West. Obviously, Seahawks, as we just said, picking up that huge win. Cardinals coming off a bye. 47.5, like that's where we're seeing a lot of games in this like mid to upper 40s. I think those numbers feel super spot on. A 1.5 point spread. Again, I think is super spot on. Again, I think this is a game that we're going to see a lower scoring game because of its importance. Like, it's not like week 2, week 3, these teams want to, get their offenses moving on the right track. These teams are fighting for the exact same thing. These teams are separated by one game in the standings. And this is like a huge swing spot where not only are they picking up a win, they're causing the team that they're chasing to grab a loss, and they also have a spot to pick up another divisional win. So I think this leans towards the under as well. I think we should be looking at unders on passing attempts, unders on passing yards. I think we'd be looking at overs on James Conner and over on Kenneth Walker. Again, these two games are very, very similar, the ones we've just discussed, and I think under 47.5 will ultimately be the best play.
All right. We'll continue to look forward on that one. Like I said, Tom and I will have another post-game show on Thursday where we'll break these down with better lines, better odds, and some player prop bets in the mix. Now, when it comes to some Sunday night football, we'll be doing this. Pro football today. Eagles, Rams. Eagles starting to get into a rhythm here. Rams as well. I mean, a number of people want to see them make it to the postseason. So we're looking at a 3 even on the spread, 50.5 on the total. How do we stack up for Sunday night football?
Love the Rams at +3. I think I want to jump on them now before the line, theoretically moves to 2.5, and then you'd be missing out on that number. So I do like the Rams. Eagles have been on a roll. Like you said, they've been winning, 6 straight games, 7 straight games, whatever it is at this point. But they're not covering every game. And I do think that the Rams would be live to win this game. So I like the Rams. 50.5. It's a little bit much. It's a little bit much for me. I think this is type of the in-game betting totals, like in-game live betting. It starts off a little bit slow, drops really slow, drops down to the low 40s at 41, to over 41. I do think the Rams come away with the victory, though.
Ooh, that's going to be an interesting one to see. But again, Tom and I will be covering that one. Tom will cover you up all the way through the halftime, and then we'll break everything down on the post-game show for Pro Football Today. But more importantly, you're going to want to continue to keep all of your NFL coverage with the in-game live crew. That's Donnie, Kevin, and Joe. And then with the Pro Football Today crew, that's me, Tom Vecchio, Dave Sheriffin, and Adam Kaufman for the pre-game show, and then me and Tom halftime and post-game. So continue to keep it all with us here on SportsGrid TV. Make sure you're following SportsGrid over at SportsGrid. Follow all the hosts because you don't want to miss a beat. We're getting closer and closer to the postseason. Things are shaking up. Kansas got their first loss yesterday, and trust me, a lot of Bills fans are seeing hope at the end of the tunnel. So stick with us here on SportsGrid TV. As for tonight, it's a wrap from Tom and myself.